Today on Politics Unplugged, the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk stuns the political world.
It is shocking. It's horrific. It's deeply disturbing.
We speak with the state's top law enforcement official about the rise of political violence. And our panel breaks down how we got here and what happens next. Now on Politics Unplugged. Good evening. I'm political editor Dennis Welch, and this is Politics Unplugged. Unfortunately, we'll be spending the next 30 minutes focusing on the dark topic of political violence. This follows the brutal assassination of Charlie Kirk, the 31-year-old Scottsdale resident who co-founded Turning Point USA. The influential and polarizing conservative activist was speaking at an event this week in Utah when he was fatally shot in the neck. And shortly after his murder, I spoke with Attorney General Kris Mayes to get her thoughts about the latest escalation in what appears to be another politically inspired attack. Here is part of that conversation.
As the top law enforcement official in Arizona, I can say it is shocking. It's horrific. It's deeply disturbing, and I hope that Utah officials hold this person, whoever did this, accountable fully under the law. And then, you know, as a mom, I will say I think it's horrible to think about all the young people who had to witness this. And I just, it would appear that this is political violence, and we've seen so much political violence just this year and last year. This comes on the heels of a Minnesota Democratic lawmaker assassinated President Trump, attempted assassination. And we have got to come together as a country. We've got to lower the temperature and decide who we want to be as a country, because this is happening way too often.
Yeah, because it's beyond politics, right? I mean,
Yeah.
If you can speak a little bit about that, because it's not just you, it's a lot of other Democratic, folk leaders are coming out against this. We are in a time of intense political polarization.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can't look at this in a vacuum. This is happening at a time when we are so polarized as a country, when we see so much speech and rhetoric that sort of gins up hatred in the sense that we're all against each other, but we're not. We're all Americans, and we've got to get back to a time where we talk civilly about politics, and where people don't feel like that the way they resolve their differences over politics is by taking a high-powered rifle into a university and shooting one of the most prominent political figures in the country dead. And Charlie Kirk, as you know, whether you agree with him or not, was the most prominent political Republican figure in Arizona by far.
He had an incredible amount of power to influence
He did.
the debate. And that's an incredible, significant ability to have, in politics anywhere, is that ability to influence. How does this affect politics moving forward? You're a politician.
Yeah.
You're running for re-election. How does this affect now moving forward? Because, are you scared when you go out and speak to people?
As you know, I've been one of the most sort of open to public events politicians in Arizona. I've held, I think, 35 town halls during my time as AG, 12 this year. I do open air events like this. I've done several rallies even just this year. It does make you think, and we think about security. The problem is it's hard to guard against something like this. And so, even when you have security around you, so that I think the sad part about this is it's going to make more politicians less likely to go out there and mix it up with people. That's what Charlie Kirk was doing. Again, whatever you think about his politics, he was out there in front of thousands of students talking to them about issues. And that, generally speaking, is what we want and what we used to be able to have in this country. And so that's what makes me, among other things, most sad about this, is that I think it's going to cause more and more people to not want to appear publicly, and that would be a terrible result. But I'm right now I'm most thinking about Charlie Kirk's family. He was a husband, a father, and he was an Arizonan. You know, and then the organization that he founded really kind of took off here. I mean, this is where it took off.
Well, what would you like to see moving forward from this then? You're talking about lowering the temperature, you know, mending some of the differences, being able to have these discussions. I mean, that's the million-dollar question. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that the fact that we had the assassination of a Democratic lawmaker in Minnesota, and now Charlie Kirk, within the scope of 3 or 4 months of each other, that it would cause us to take a step back as a people, as Americans, and say, wait a second, we've got to lower the rhetoric, number one, and then, you know, at some point when it's appropriate, we need to talk about policy. We need to talk about how in the world is it that people are walking onto university campuses with high-powered rifles? How is that possible? How is it possible that somebody could walk up to a Minnesota legislator's house and shoot her dead? And how is it possible that too many people, you know, I've proposed a red flag law 2-3 years in a row at the legislature. I can't even get a hearing for it. Why can't we get guns out of the hands of mentally ill people? Now, of course, we don't know whether this person who killed Charlie Kirk was mentally ill, but we know that is mental health is a big part of this problem, and access to those guns, which are just much more lethal than they used to be.
And if people see that part of the interview, I mean, they're going to say, well, there goes Kris Mayes, liberal Democrat, just making this political, calling for, gun control.
I mean, I don't think it is really calling for gun control, because I'm a gun owner. Turns out I'm the first AG since Bob Corbin to carry a gun. And what I believe in, what I think most Arizonans believe in, is common sense reforms. And I think when we get past this a few days, maybe a few weeks down the road, I hope there is a conversation, but there never seems to be any action, right? I mean, how many assassinations does it take for us to take some action? Go back, Dennis, to Gabby Giffords, you know, in 2011. And here we are in 2025, and Charlie Kirk, another Arizonan, has been now assassinated. Gabby survived, Charlie Kirk didn't. A person from the right was shot today. This summer it was a person on the left. Tomorrow, who knows who it will be. But we've got to have something come out of this that brings us together as a country and helps us solve these problems.
And still ahead, we'll bring in our panel to talk about the rise of political violence.
The assassination attempt of Charlie Kirk this week is the latest in a series of politically motivated, violent acts to rock the country. Here's a recap of just some of those attacks over the past 14 months against politicians on both sides of the aisle. Last year, there were 2 assassination attempts of then former President Donald Trump. The most notable happened in July of 2024 when a gunman opened fire at a Trump campaign rally in Pennsylvania. A counter-sniper team killed the shooter, who was on a nearby rooftop. In April of this year, a man was accused of trying to kill Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro by firebombing his home. The governor and his family safely escaped, and the suspect was quickly captured. And just 3 months ago, Minnesota state lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband were fatally shot at their home. The suspect was caught after a 2-day manhunt and allegedly had a hit list of 45 elected officials.
And welcome back. It's time to bring in our panel. But first, I want to give you the latest information we have on Charlie Kirk's murder. Now, as of this taping on Friday morning, authorities do have a suspect in custody. He's been identified as 22-year-old Utah resident Tyler Robinson, and this is his booking photo. Robinson was reportedly caught after a family friend caught wind that he may have been connected to the fatal shooting of Kirk. And here to help us wade through this tragedy is Republican political consultant Marcus Dell'Artino and Democratic consultant Rodd McLeod. I want to thank you both for being here today, and I just want to start with you, just your initial reactions to the latest, political violent episode, not only to rock the country, but to hit here close to home in Arizona. We'll start with you, Rodd.
Well, it's obviously a terrible, terrible tragedy, and it seems to bring out the worst in us. Lots of finger pointing and blame. We don't even know what the motivations this person were. Obviously, it seems to be political, but like Gabby Giffords was shot.
I was going to say it's a little personal. It's got to hit close to home to you because you worked for Gabby Giffords back in 2011 when she was shot gravely in the head, at a campaign event down in Tucson.
Yeah, I mean, and it was 19 people got shot. Yeah, 6 people killed. A little girl got killed. Her 24th birthday would have been yesterday. And, it felt political. We had just been through a really rough campaign. It was in January, but the person was an untreated schizophrenic who did it. So it's hard to pull apart the motivation. Is this person really wanting to be famous in some way? Is he disconnected? Are they suffering from mental illness? Political violence is something that we've seen a lot of in America going back to Abraham Lincoln's assassination, but it's really important to have leaders who try to calm things down, de-escalate, and get people to listen and talk and not just point fingers. I was impressed by Utah Governor Spencer Cox, a Republican who did the right thing.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about some of the reactions there and some of the way people are dealing with this and speaking about this. But first, I want to get your reaction, Marcus, to yet another chapter in this, dark story.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I have more questions than I have answers, and I think that that's natural. We did a quick press.
Okay. It's also okay because I know a lot of people want to get on that jump to conclusion map and start making assumptions that we have to wait until the facts come in.
Yeah, I mean there was certainly a lot of assumptions that were made in the 33 hours leading up to this arrest, and some of them were absolutely incorrect. And so I'm not going to jump to a conclusion yet, but I am looking forward over the next couple of weeks to quite a bit of fact finding and what exactly took place.
Yeah, and moving on from your personal reaction, what have you been making about the reactions now you're seeing from some top leaders across the country? A lot of finger pointing going on. A lot of people, again, jumping to conclusions here, and we're still waiting for all the facts to come in.
I was very disappointed but not surprised in President Trump's reaction, finger pointing, claiming it was his phrase, the lunatic left or something, before we even know anything. Again, I think that a lot of leaders really handle it the right way. I'm going to call out Republican Governor Cox in Utah again for being thoughtful and sober. But members of Congress, from Nancy Mace to Clay Higgins, just lots of finger pointing and anger, calls for cancel culture. This person should lose their job. This person should lose their funding. You see journalists getting fired for in some cases, intemperate tweets. We should all, a family has lost a loved one. 2 little children have lost a father. I think that's really where our head should be at right now.
Yeah, and we'll talk a lot more about Kirk's legacy, and he's certainly a polarizing, a controversial figure. But some of this, at the immediate aftermath of this stuff, the fact gets lost that this was a human being. He was a father. He was a husband, had 2 young kids. That kind of gets lost in some of all this.
I don't think we've lost it. I mean, us around this table. I will tell you that once you have a child, there is a gene that kicks in for fathers, and we are compassionate to other fathers and what we go through. And I think that that's certainly the case where my head is when you look at this family and two kids that will not grow up with a father. Worst of all, they will grow up with a videotape that for some reason these social media companies can't get off the social media. And so we're compassionate to that. And I think we've certainly shown that in the last, few hours since this happened.
And what's your initial response to the investigation afterward? It was initially they had somebody in custody, and then he wasn't a person of interest or a suspect, and then they had somebody else and they were talking to a person of interest, and then he wasn't. Get your thoughts on the investigation post this assassination.
Right. I think, we've got to have some perspective here. This school was not in the city of Phoenix with the city of Phoenix police force. It was a small town. The school had 5 officers on staff. Charlie had a smaller security team of, probably 5 guys, I think it was. So this wasn't, I think everybody responded appropriately. Right on at that moment, the sheriff's office was involved, the FBI was involved, but this wasn't next door in a big metropolis.
All right, and I know we're running a little short in this segment on time, but I want to end this segment with asking you, you saw the Attorney General Kris Mayes saying, turning this, making this about gun rights and talking about red flag laws and things that could be done to prevent more acts of violence like this. Any hope? Any thoughts about that could happen? Because I would look at this and see the political landscape as like we've seen so many shootings over the past 20 years. I don't think it's going to change now, do you?
Well, we have to keep, the world is always going to change. Change is the one constant in life. So we have to imagine the change we want and try to work for it. I mean, the bottom line is you should be able to, as a young man like Charlie Kirk, do your politics. I don't like his politics,
100%.
but that's not the point. The point is if we're going to govern ourselves, if we have self-government, you have to be able to speak, certainly on a college campus, and we have to make sure that we can do that safely. How we do that, I think we have a lot to think about.
Yeah, what I was asking, Kris Mayes talking about red flag laws. We saw Governor Doug Ducey, Republican, try to do that, and he took a lot of heat for doing that. I don't see any gun legislation coming out of this tragedy either, do you?
No, and I would say this. I think that there is a lane for mental health.
Okay.
Forget about guns and the Second Amendment. I think that we all realize that we have a mental health crisis in this country, number one. And number two is what I will tell you that every parent that I know, whether they're Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, or Vegetarian, will be in agreement with is we have to do something with social media. And if it goes away tomorrow, we're not going to lose a wink of sleep over it.
All right, we're going to end this segment right here. I'll be bringing back the panel here in the next segment to talk more about the rise of political violence next on Politics Unplugged.
The murder of Charlie Kirk sent shockwaves through the nation this week, revealing the good, the bad, and the ugly of our current political climate. Here's a look at some of the other major stories coming out of this dark time for America. President Trump said he plans to honor Kirk with the nation's highest civilian award, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The president called the controversial conservative a martyr for truth and freedom. The president also recorded a video in the White House where he vowed to crack down on political violence and blamed the rhetoric coming from the radical left for Kirk's assassination. On Capitol Hill, Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson tried to keep the partisan finger-pointing from spiraling out of control. But when he tried to hold a moment of silence for Kirk, the House descended into a shouting match on both sides of the chamber.
Wait a minute. The House will be in order. The House will be in order.
And finally, a major cable news network fired one of their political pundits over comments he made after Kirk's death. The commentator said, quote, "Hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions."
And welcome back to Politics Unplugged. We're keeping the panel here. When Rodd, I want to talk to you. Charlie Kirk, no news. He was controversial. He was polarizing. He said things that really upset groups of people out there. Some people would say it was offensive and hurtful, but he was somebody who drew a lot of attention to Republican conservative politics. What do you think his legacy is going to be?
I think it's too soon to tell. I have a critique. I don't think now's the right time for it. His family hasn't even laid him to rest. He was a public figure, and I think his words are, it's fair game to discuss them after a decent interval. Hopefully part of his legacy will be that our country takes a look at this violence, and as Marcus mentioned, how it's fanned by social media and fanned by people like Donald Trump, who is already casting blame and blaming one side, and doing the opposite of what Governor Cox in Utah did, which was to try to de-escalate and get us to all think about our own actions. So it's way too soon to tell.
And, obviously, Charlie Kirk really energized young people, engaged them, got them into conservative politics. That's significant in the Republican Party. Growing up, the Republican Party was always identified as the party of older voters. He was able to get young people, inject that fresh energy into the Republican Party. Charismatic. Wow. Where does Turning Point USA now go? This is not an easy fix for that group. This is not somebody that's replaceable, I would think.
Yeah, I think many of the uninitiated or don't do this on a minute-by-minute basis might say, oh, you just go out shopping and jump on one of the recruiter websites and find a good CFO that can fill that role. And that's not the magic of what made Turning Point. What made Turning Point was Charlie Kirk. And that means you have to have that kind of energy and that kind of willingness to go onto a college campus, to ask those controversial questions, to debate with those kids one-on-one and not leave the stage until that debate's ended. And that's a tougher find than I think most people realize.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a significant thing. I mean, like, you're going into a re-election campaign, and maybe too early to start talking about that, but like, this is Turning Point USA. You can't overstate the significance they had in Republican politics in Arizona. I mean, some people would say that they were more powerful and more influential than the actual Republican Party itself here in Arizona, right, Rodd?
Well, they certainly had a big profile, and as discussed, they mobilized a lot of people. What that means for the future is there's always something new under the sun, and that energy still exists.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to stop right there. That is all the time we have tonight. But before we go, it is with a heavy heart that we say goodbye to a longtime member of Arizona's family and just a very good friend, Frank Camacho. Frank died after a long battle with cancer. He was 75 years old. During his distinguished career, Frank was a trailblazing journalist and one of the first Mexican-American news anchors in the Phoenix area. He was also the original host of this program, Politics Unplugged, and he will be deeply, deeply missed.